Walters Sports Bar is available for private events. Visit waltersdc.com/private events for more information.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Corbin sets, kicks and delivers, and a swing and a fly ball. It well to left center field. Ilomar Vargas is there. This is deep enough to score the run. He'll throw toward third. Holding at second is Kiner Falefa. And crossing the plate is Dalton Varsho from third base. On a sacrifice fly, a run batted in for George Springer is his 6th of the year. And the Blue Jays have plated 3 here at the top of the second. It's Toronto 3 and Washington nothing.
And the first pitch, Garcia swings, launches one, deep center field. Way back goes the center fielder Varsho at the wall. He leaps, and it's gone! It's gone! A first pitch, pinch hit, 3-run home run for Luis Garcia. And the Nationals are in front for the first time, 4-3.
Now the pitch. Swinging a ground ball hit hard up the middle. That's a base hit into center field. Abrams around 30, speeding home. Varsho up with it, will have no play. It's a single to center field for Joey Meneses. And the Nationals add another run here in the bottom of the 8th inning. 4 runs home. It's now Washington 9 and Toronto 3.
And welcome to Nats Chat for Saturday, May 4th, 2024. What is Star Wars Day 2024? May the 4th be with you. And the Force was with the Nats, certainly in the latter innings on Friday evening. A 9-3 win over the Toronto Blue Jays at Nationals Park in Game 1 of a 3-game series, and in a game in which the Nats overcame a 3-0 third-inning deficit and scored 4 runs in the 7th inning and 4 runs in the 8th inning. The Nats are back at 500 for this regular season at 16-16. This installment of the Nat Chat podcast is brought to us by Table to Mat, which you can count on for all of your nutrition and personal training needs. Table to Mat offers virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. You can email Table to Mat directly through the website tabletomat.com. That's the word table, the number 2, MAT.com. You can call Table to Mat at 240-388-2206. The Nats on Friday evening scored 1 run through 6 innings. So that gave the Nats a mere 3 runs over the team's last 33 innings. But then came the Nats scoring 4 runs in the 7th inning and 4 runs in the 8th inning. Mark, once the Blue Jays starting pitcher Yusei Kikuchi was pulled from the game, it was as if a switch was flipped and the Nats offense erupted.
That was a remarkable turn of events, Al. And it started, immediately that inning. Vargas draws a walk. Riley Adams, who had been in a horrible slump, 1 for 21 singles. And then Davey makes the big move to send Luis Garcia up there to pinch hit, knowing that the right-hander who's on the mound at that point, Swanson, has to stay in. He's got to face 3 batters. So you've got the platoon advantage now, lefty on righty, and bam, 1 pitch, and it's a whole new ball game, and the floodgates opened. And that decision, and then the execution by Luis Garcia, was a huge moment. I would say one of the biggest moments of the season to date, right?
I would say so. I mean, especially when you consider, Friday night, you had the rave lighting going on, however you want to call it, with the red lights flashing and the stadium going dark off the home run by Garcia. That was a pretty cool scene. Yeah, so Luis Garcia Jr., he's having a good season, but he lately has not been an every game starter. He's been kind of in and out of the lineup, depending on who Davey Martinez wants to play. I wonder if we're going to see him be back to being a staple in Davey's lineups now moving forward with the kind of season that Garcia's putting together here. So Luis Garcia Jr. on Friday evening came off the bench and he went 1 for 1 with that 3-run home run. Also had a walk, but Garcia in what ended up being a 4-run Nat 7th, a pinch first pitch 3-run homer to center field for a 4-3 Nats lead, 402 feet per Statcast. And that started everything. This 8-run avalanche by the Nats over the 7th and 8th innings. Garcia in that Nats 4-run 8th drew a 1-out walk. Luis Garcia Jr. for this regular season has an OPS now of 800. The batting average is at 300. The on-base percentage is at 344. The slugging percentage is at 456. But if you look at the Nats leaders for, say, OPS or any of the rate stats, Garcia's not among them because he does not qualify. He does not have enough plate appearances. And it's a little bizarre. Now, I know that Ildemaro Vargas is hitting well when playing, but in the bigger picture, Garcia is earning his way into being an every game player here. And I hope that we start to see more of Luis Garcia Jr.
So it's basically been a platoon at this point. He starts pretty much every game against the righties, and then he's not playing against the lefties, so that's why he wasn't in there for this one. You actually had Trey Lipscomb starting at second base in this one, and then Vargas was in left field as they had quite the outfield arrangement as this game went along. I think Davey looks at this and says he's trying to put guys in the best positions to succeed, and it's working. I think a lot of these platoons and matchups are working. I will be interested, too, though, to see if he keeps this up. Does he get more opportunities against lefties? And that's why, and I think this is why Luis said with a straight face to us afterwards that he was actually prouder of the walk that he drew than the home run, because the walk came against a lefty, a long, drag it out at bat, and you could see he was really excited about it. He scored the run. He was really happy with that because it came off the lefty. And so I wonder if that kind of at bat almost tells you more about his development and might lead Davey to start playing him more against lefties.
Yeah, and, you're not going to get better against lefties without facing lefties, right? So if he's ever going to become good against lefties, he's going to have to face lefties. So now would be the time to do that, right? When you're in the midst of a rebuild here. And if he's earning his way into playing against lefties, that's a great development. That's another one of these really encouraging developments for an individual Nats player. We have a lot of these going on so far this season. So really good to see that. It's so funny with this Nats offense, though. It at times looks wretched, like we saw in the series at the Rangers. It at times looks really good. And this game is like the perfect encapsulation of that. The offense was doing nothing for 6 innings and then was so good over those 7th and 8th innings. The Nats in this game torched that Blue Jays bullpen. The Blue Jays it felt like 100 pitching changes over the final few innings of this game.
So maybe some of this is who they're facing, and you're facing inferior pitchers out of the bullpen as opposed to a starter who was really good. But I also think there's a psychological element to this. And when you're struggling to score runs the way they have over the last few days, and it's kind of happening all over again, and you're trailing all night, and you're thinking, man, we got to just do anything we can just to try to score 1 or 2 runs, you press, you try to do too much. And then one swing of the bat flips the switch, all of a sudden you have the lead, and it's like the pressure is gone and you can just go out and swing the bat the way you know how to. So some of it is probably the Blue Jays pitching at that point, what they were doing. But I think some of it is also just the Nats hitters being relaxed and understanding, okay, we have the lead, let's keep it going. And what they did in those last 2 innings, I don't think you can understate this. It was remarkable how different the at-bats and the results were. And what you also saw is the kind of thing that they've been trying to do, and we've talked about on the podcast. Once they start getting guys on base, they can make things happen. But you can't do that if you don't have guys on base in the first place. And for much of the last, 3.5 games, they just haven't had the guys on base to even try to do anything.
Nats finished this game with very good offensive numbers, 12 hits, 5 walks, 4 for 13, with runners in scoring position. The 12 hits were made up of the Luis Garcia Jr. home run, 3 doubles, and 8 singles. So the runs were scored in a variety of ways. The Blue Jays became a sloppy mess to a certain extent in that 4-run 8th inning, but you had a lot of walks over these 2 innings, each of which included the Nats scoring 4 runs. That 4-run bottom of the 7th started with an Ildemaro Vargas leadoff walk. The 4-run bottom of the 8th, Alex Call leadoff walk, steal a second base. 2 batters later, Riley Adams, an intentional walk. And then after that was that Luis Garcia Jr. walk that we just talked about. So, you're right. The Nats at the Rangers barely drew any walks, had a bad offensive series. The Nats in this game draw a bunch of walks and end up erupting big time. Another good game for Nick Senzel, who started at third base on Friday evening for what felt like the first time in a long time. He's been serving as the designated hitter more often than not lately, but Senzel on Friday evening as the Nats starting third baseman and number 3 batter, 2 for 4 with an RBI double, a single, and a walk. It's kind of odd. The Nats scored 9 runs beyond the Garcia homer. There actually weren't that many other really big hits in this game, but Senzel did have a significant hit for sure. He in that 4-run 7th had a 1-out RBI double to left field for a 5-3 Nats lead despite having been down at 1.12. He also in the 4-run 8th had a 2-out first pitch single into center field, and Senzel in the bottom of the first drew a 2-out walk. Nick Senzel, since coming back from injury, has been a productive player.
He has, and I think Davey wanted to get him more into the flow of things by having him play third base again and not just coming off the bench essentially as a DH 4 times a game. So I don't know if that made a difference or not, but he had one of his better games and was fine in the field as well. And that double, it was a hit and run double. Jesse Winker is on second base and he takes off for third as Senzel makes contact and drives the ball to left field. Now, maybe Winker would have scored anyways because it's double and he was on second, but that was one of those things you just don't see very often. The hit and run with the runner on second and ends up being an extra base hit on top of all that. And then in the 8th inning, you said there were no really big hits. The biggest moment probably was the line drive to second that looked like it could be a killer double play. And instead, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa throws the ball into the camera well. And the rule on that, when the infielder does it, it's 2 bases automatically. So 2 runs scored on that on what could have been a double play. Instead, they get 2 runs on a line out. You don't see that one very often.
No, you don't. And like I said, Blue Jays, a bit of a sloppy mess in that 4-run 8th inning, but props to the Nats for capitalizing. If you're looking for other big hits in this game, Joey Meneses did have a run-scoring hit. He on Friday evening as the Nats starting first baseman and number 4 batter, 2 for 5 RBI single and another single. Meneses in that Nats 4-run 8th had a 2-out RBI single up the middle for a 9-3 Nats lead.
Swing for the fences this summer and hire Table to Mat for all your nutrition and personal training needs. Being healthy and having fun do not have to be mutually exclusive. Table to Mat specializes in making healthy lifestyles enjoyable and sustainable. Are you experiencing headaches, stomach discomfort, or want to lose weight? Find out how your food choices and exercise impact how you feel physically and mentally. We offer virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. With over a decade working in our fields, we bring experience and passion to help you be the best version of yourself. You can email us directly through our website at tabletomat.com or call us at 240-388-2206. That's the word table, the number 2, MAT.com.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. That's Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Here's the set of the pitch. Swinging a ground ball left side. Booted by the third baseman. Clement picks it up, throws. Not in time! Abrams beats the play. In from third to score is Garcia. Clement, who had been lights out with every play at third, boots that one. The Nationals get another run. 3 runs home here in the inning, and it's now Washington 8, Toronto 3. Unbelievable.
You mentioned what went on with the Nats outfield in this game. So your starting outfield was Ildemaro Vargas in left, Jacob Young in center, and Alex Call in right. Young, though, left the game. We didn't know why. We find out after the game, back spasms, right?
Yeah, it's something that acted up on him along the way. I think it was the 5th inning that he came out of it. And Davey said it was getting to a point that they just didn't trust to have him out there. They were worried about it. He was getting treatment afterwards. It sounds like they're not terribly concerned. It's kind of a day-to-day thing, and they're hoping he might be feeling well enough to play on Saturday because he's become a big part of the lineup here. Didn't seem like anything beyond that, anything to be worried about him missing a bunch of days or even having to consider the IL. But, I mean, they really can't afford to lose a whole lot else offensively or even in the outfield right now. So hopefully that's all that it was. And it was a strangely cold night, especially as the night went on. And I wonder if his back acted up on him as a result of that.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, the Nats cannot catch a break with outfielder health this season. This really has been something. It feels like every time you lift your head up, another Nats outfielder is getting injured or is ailing in some way. Young did have a double in this game. He is the Nats starting center fielder and number 1 batter, 1 for 2 with a double. He and the Nats 1-run third had a leadoff double to left field despite having been down in the count at 1.12. We did see Davey Martinez in this game go with Jacob Young as the number 1 batter, CJ Abrams as the number 2 batter. We've seen some of that, not a lot of that. Do you think that we are going to see more of that?
I think Davey would like to do that more regularly as long as Young is up to it and is feeling well. And his quote before the game about the lineup change, he said,
"Definition of insanity, right?" Hey, I'm going to try to do something. I mean, we're going to put Jacob up at the top.
So even Davey acknowledging it would be insane to keep trotting the same lineup out there every day and expect different results because they weren't getting it. So let's do something different. And I mean, in reality, it's no different than what they do when Young hits 9th and Abrams hits 1st. They're back to back. It's just giving Young an extra at bat right off at the top of the game. And those two do a lot of good things together. And that 3rd inning rally, that worked out perfectly the way you would want. So I think that was good. It kind of lengthens the lineup. Maybe it gives Abrams a chance to drive in more runs instead of just worrying about scoring himself. So I think for now, as long as Young's back is okay, we may see more of that. But he's piecing it together in the outfield right now. And it's a day-to-day thing. And while there's some help coming, it's not going to be immediate. So it is a bit of a stretch right now to figure out how they're going to arrange that.
I do find it odd with Jacob Young from this standpoint. If you think enough of him to bat him in the number 1 spot, then why are you so frequently batting him in the 9th spot? Like, if you value him as a batter, right, the higher up he bats, the more plate appearances he's going to get. So if you think he's worthy of the number 1 spot, then you shouldn't have him in the number 9 spot so often. I mean, batting 9th, he's batting behind like guys who are struggling, the Eddie Rosarios and the Joey Gallos of the world. Davey has this thing, I know, of like a second leadoff batter, which personally I've never agreed with, but whatever. But if you value Young and he's doing a good job, he's getting on base a bunch, he's stealing bases, he shouldn't be batting 9th. He should be batting higher because that'll get him up to bat more.
So I think the idea, and it was more of a thing when they were healthier at the top of the lineup, is you want CJ leading off as the tone setter, everything that he can do. And then ideally you have Lane Thomas and a hot Jesse Winker hitting behind him. What's happened as Thomas got hurt, as Winker cooled off a lot, he's used Senzel up there in the 2 spot, but that really who he is in the long run or not. So I think you get to a point you say, okay, Jacob Young is one of our better hitters and more productive hitters right now. So let's just put him up at the top and essentially keep the same order, but now give him an extra at bat. So if everyone was healthy and productive, I don't think there's a huge issue with putting him at the bottom of the order as the quote-unquote second leadoff man. Abrams is such a dynamic leadoff hitter that you don't necessarily want to mess that up. And sometimes things are going well. You don't want to now move him in a different spot, even though psychologically it shouldn't make all that much difference, but maybe it does somewhere in there. The way this went in this game, it looked like it worked, and Abrams was not negatively affected by it. So I do think we'll see more of it, especially given what the personnel is right now.
Well, hard to argue with 9 runs, given the way the offense had been going. I mentioned Ildemaro Vargas and Luis Garcia Jr. Vargas did have another extra base hit in this game. He has been productive when he has played this season. Got to give him credit. Vargas on Friday evening as the Nats starting left fielder and number 7 batter, 1 for 2 with a double and a walk. Bottom of the second, a 1-out double off the left field wall, and he in that 4-run 7th drew a leadoff walk. Now, regarding C.J. Abrams in this game. So Abrams did have a key hit. He went 1 for 5 with an RBI single as your Nats starting shortstop and number 2 batter. He in the 1-run third had an RBI single through the right side of the infield to cut the Nats deficit to 3-1. But 2 standout defensive plays by Abrams in this game. Top of the 4th, a very nice defensive play. He was a man on third and 1 out, made a spinning catch of a grounder off the bat of George Springer, and then fired to home plate where Ernie Clement was tagged out for the second out. And then Abrams in the top of the 5th, another very nice defensive play. He in shallow left field made a diving backhanded catch of a grounder off the bat of Justin Turner, and then made a 1-hop throw to first baseman Joey Meneses for a ground out for the second out. And credit to Meneses for making a nice underhanded catch of the 1-hop throw. But Abrams really impressive defensively in this game.
We're seeing this happen on a regular basis now. Obviously, he was really fired up for that infield in play, throwing him out at the plate. He said that is a play he has specifically been working on with Ricky Gutierrez, the spin after you field it, spin and fire it to the plate. And he said they've gone through so many reps of that in pregame drills that when it happened in the game, it was all instinct. He didn't even have to think about it. It just kind of happened naturally. That's exactly the way it's supposed to work. It's why they take ground ball after ground ball after ground ball, and why they keep saying, in the case of Abrams, but I think it applies to everyone, you stick to a routine every single day, and that it becomes ingrained in your mind and in your body and in your movements, so that when it happens in a game, it's all very natural. I don't think we can emphasize enough how far he has come in the last year defensively, and everybody acknowledges the same thing. It's the work that he's putting in before the games every single day that is putting him in a good position to make these kind of plays. And it's nice to see that he recognizes that and is fired up himself when he makes a big play like that.
Number 1 bright spot to this Nats season so far. I don't know how you argue otherwise. Keibert Ruiz on Friday evening was the Nats starting DH. We did have Riley Adams as the Nats starting catcher. Keibert was a number 5 batter. He went 1 for 5 with a single. Bottom of the 6th, a 2-out full count single through the left side of the infield despite having been down at 1.12. But he, during the plate appearance, fouled a ball off a leg. Did stay in the game and impressively got the single. But I'm watching that. I said to myself, boy, Keibert cannot buy a break. He seems to always have things like this happen to him, right? He missed substantial time just a few weeks ago due to influenza. Remember, in the 2022 season, he had the testicular contusion. And here he is on Friday evening, fouling a ball off a leg. I know that happens, but man, it feels like this guy has what another Nats catcher used to have, Wilson Ramos, that perpetual dark cloud over his head where like bad stuff tends to happen to the guy. And I was wondering if Keibert might come out. Obviously he didn't, so that was good to see. But man, he just cannot catch a break, it feels like.
No, I agree, Nat. You hope it doesn't get to the point that it did with Ramos, who suffered major injuries that cost him seasons and even the chance to play in some postseason games for the Nats. You hope that doesn't happen, that Ruiz's case has been mostly minor stuff, annoying stuff to be sure, but nothing that huge. It looked nasty, that foul ball off the leg. I mean, we've all done it at some point growing up. You imagine at the major league level how much that hurts when you do that at the velocity that they're throwing and the velocity that they're swinging the bat. Credit to him. And then I was watching when he hit the single, watching him run down to first base. It did not look comfortable. Not a guy who's that speedy to begin with, but good for him. He stuck it out. He was DHing for the night, so that helped a little bit. He needed that hit. Even with that hit, he's now 3 for his last 38, which is not good at all. And there have been some bad at-bats. And the previous at-bat in the 3rd inning, you had the Young double and the Abrams single. They get the 1 run, but they have a chance for a much bigger inning. Runners on the corners, 1 out. Blue Jays have a mound visit, and on the very first pitch, Ruiz grounds into an inning-ending double play. And I feel like that kind of thing has happened to him a lot. Him and Meneses are the two that seem to be doing that a whole lot. So it's nice to see him come back with the single later on, but he is still finding it again at the plate. Given everything else that he's dealt with, he is not in a comfortable spot yet. I don't know how much of it's physical. I don't know how much of it's him just struggling at the plate, but they desperately need him to start getting back on track again.
Very much so, but overall, really good stuff from the Nats offense on Friday evening, and in a game in which the opposing starting pitcher was a really good one. This guy Kikuchi is very good. Even in this game, he was good. 1 run, 6 innings, 7 strikeouts. His ERA this regular season down to 2.72. So you're facing a very good pitcher, and yet you still end up finding a way to win, find a way to score 9 runs. The Blue Jays, to cover the final 2 innings, used 5 relievers. Like, the Nats really had their way with this Blue Jays bullpen.
It took a while, but spring/summer is finally here in the DMV, I think, which means plenty of chances to comfortably go to the ballpark. Next week, the first place Orioles come to town, and it's time to check the Game Time app for plenty of ticketing options. Make sure to look at their all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Game Time offers the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code NATSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code NATSCHAT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Here's your Dylan Cruz and James Wood updates for the games played on Friday evening. In Harrisburg's 2-0 victory over the Altoona Curve, Cruz went 0 for 4. He played center field and hit third, struck out twice. He's hitting .232 on the season with an OPS of .706. Meanwhile, up in AAA, Rochester routed the Syracuse Mets 10-1. Wood in that game, 3 for 5, all of them singles, knocked in 2 runs. He drew a walk as well. He's hitting .327 with an OPS at .900. Now back to the show.
That's a strike away from getting back to 500. Floro's into the windup. The 0-2 pitch swung on, hit in the air to center field. Call going back. He's there now, squaring up, waiting, and he makes the catch. And a Curly W's in the books. The Nationals down 3-1. They score 8 unanswered runs, 4 in the 7th, 4 more in the 8th, and they take game 1 of this 3-game interleague series from the Blue Jays.
Well, the Nats starting pitcher on Friday evening was Patrick Corbin, as the Nats, for a second consecutive Corbin start, authored a come-from-behind win. Maybe this is becoming a theme of Patrick Corbin's 2024 campaign. Who knows? But this was one of these Corbin outings in which, early on, things did not look good, but ultimately, things actually went reasonably well. Corbin ultimately allowed 3 runs in 6 innings, what technically, right, is a quality start. Now, top of the second, he allowed 3 runs on a walk, 2 doubles, a single, and an RBI sac fly. Corbin, in fact, over the Blue Jays' first 7 plate appearances of the game, gave up 3 doubles. But he retired each of the final 8 batters he faced. He, over his 6 innings, gave up 6 hits, which were a triple, 3 doubles, and 2 singles. He issued 2 walks and a wild pitch. He recorded just 3 strikeouts, but he did throw a lot of strikes, 92 pitches, 61 strikes, 31 balls, ends up covering 6 innings, ends up settling down, and as is so often the case in a come-from-behind win, right, the pitching is able to sort of stabilize, allowing for the offense to mount that comeback. And so, 3 runs in 6 innings for Corbin, especially with the way that the outing started, that's a pretty good job, all things considered.
Yeah, look, I feel like we've seen this happen before, and it looked like it could have gotten out of hand early on, just like the last start in Miami. But I'm going to give him credit. He has shown this ability, even as those early innings sometimes look really ugly, for him to turn it back on and salvage something out of it. He gives you 6 innings. He keeps you in the game. He doesn't get the win. He's still looking for his first win. But those were some really important innings for him, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th, to get through those, allow the game to get late to the back end of the bullpen, not have to burn up others, and still give them a chance. And so at this stage of his career, I think you have to be excited when he does that kind of thing. You'd love for him to be dominant. We know how rarely that's going to be the case with him. So if you're not going to do that, at least give them length and give them a chance to win. And even when it looks like it might really go south and he might have one of these awful starts that we've seen from him in the past, I think he's getting better, for whatever reason, at salvaging that and at least turning it into a halfway decent outing.
And then the Nats bullpen on Friday evening was very good. 3 Nats relievers combined for 3 scoreless innings. Jacob Barnes tossed a scoreless top of the 7th. Hunter Harvey tossed a scoreless top of the 8th. And Dylan Floro tossed a perfect top of the 9th. This was set up to go Hunter Harvey 8th inning, Kyle Finnegan 9th inning, but the Nats ended up scoring the 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th, and so Kyle Finnegan did not have to come into the game. You know, if you could have looked to the future and seen a 9-3 win, you wouldn't have pitched Harvey, but of course you didn't know that at the time, so I don't blame Davey Martinez for that. I do want to note this, though. 32 games now for the Nats this season. Hunter Harvey has appeared in 15. He has appeared in nearly half of the Nationals' games in this regular season. Should we be concerned about his workload, given his injury history?
And how many of those have been 1+ innings? You know, he's the guy they bring in the 7th when Weems or somebody else gets into trouble. He gets out of the jam, and then he comes back and pitches the 8th as well. Now, he's been really good at it. He's, by all accounts, been very healthy. I think he feels way more confident about the state of his arm, the state of his body than he's maybe ever been. So credit to him for, you know, figuring out a formula that works for him. But yeah, I mean, with any reliever who has that kind of workload, you're always worried. Certainly with one who has the injury track record that Hunter Harvey does, you're always cringing and hoping the next outing isn't the one where something goes wrong for him. So yeah, in a perfect world, you'd love for David to be able to stay off of him a little bit more, but so many of these games are close late. If they could score a few more runs early, have a bigger lead, you don't have to do that. It was big for them not to have to use Finnegan in this game. But if you don't want to use Harvey as well, then you better score more runs prior to the 8th inning. You can't wait that long. So far, he's been great, and I haven't heard any complaints from him. He seems, you know, the velocity has stayed there. There have been no signs of any kind of trouble with him. But yeah, it is something because of his history that you do have to keep an eye on.
His numbers really are good. 15 games, ERA 2.65, whip of 1.06, 22 strikeouts versus 4 walks. But, you know, it's interesting. Harvey, Dylan Floro, Derek Law, each guy has made 15 appearances. Each guy has appeared in nearly half of the Nats games. To that point about so many of these games being close, and to something we've talked about a lot, Davey Martinez using so many relievers in so many of these games, you have a lot of guys who have high appearance totals so far, and you wonder if that can continue to have 3 guys, each of whom has appeared in essentially half of your games so far this season. It's hard to keep that up.
Yeah, I mean, in a typical season, 70 appearances is a high number, and these guys are all on pace for about 80 at the moment. Now, you know, things happen along the way, and the odds of it staying, you know, at that pace are pretty slim. But this is where, you know, in this game, that 6th inning from Corbin makes a difference in the bigger picture. That's one less inning for somebody like Law or Barnes, I guess, although Barnes pitched in this game, but, you know, it's one less inning for somebody else to have to take. You'd love for them to have more relievers who can go 2 innings. They just don't do that a whole lot given what the personnel is. The more games you can open up big leads, the better. And the longer starts you can get, the better. But, you know, we can nitpick this stuff. But overall, I think the bullpen's doing a really good job right now.
Yeah. Oh, I think if you have to bottom line it, it's been more good than bad. There have been some bad games, but every team is going to have that with a bullpen. And by and large, I think you like what you have seen. And look, I mean, the Nats are back at 500 here. Like, they are staying in the fight, as the saying goes, and taking advantage of some matchups here. Took care of business at the Marlins. You know, the Blue Jays are off to a very disappointing start to this season. The Blue Jays are an interesting team. they've had all this young talent for years, and it really hasn't all come together. And now they're starting to get close to some of these guys coming up on free agency, really this coming offseason and really next offseason, the following offseason. So it's kind of okay, Toronto, you're going to put this stuff together or not? But credit to the Nats, doing a good job, taking game one of this series, and we'll see what goes down the rest of this series. But, you won the Corbin game of this series. You look at what's coming up. Game 2, Saturday afternoon, weather permitting, 4:05 p.m. Jake Irvin is your starting pitcher. And then Sunday afternoon, again, weather permitting, because we have rain all over the forecast for Saturday and Sunday, but 1:35 p.m. Sunday, Mackenzie Gore. So you won the game started by Corbin. Now you have Irvin and Gore coming up.
Yeah, and I think somebody pointed out to me, this was the first time this season they've won the opener of a home series. So it feels like they've always been having to come back and win the last two or salvage one game from it. They've been a whole lot better on the road, as we've discussed. So it's nice to get out in front and in a Corbin start to really set you up in pretty good position to win one of these last two. And we'll say it again. This is now the fourth time they've reached 500 already this season. It's the third time in a week they've done it. If they can win on Saturday, it's going to be big news, a winning record for the Washington Nationals for the first time since July 1st, 2021. A game best remembered for Alex Avila straining both of his calf muscles while playing second base in an emergency. You know who the color commentator for Masson is going to be on Saturday afternoon?
No, who is it?
Alex Avila, filling in for Kevin Franzen the next 2 days. Wouldn't it be fitting if they can win this game, get over the 500 hump for the first time since Alex Avila played second base, and he's back in the ballpark calling the game? How about that? Can we call that one? Can we make that happen?
That would be great. Just have him stay off his feet, and I think we'll be just fine for Saturday. That would be awesome. That would be something. It's amazing, right? Because most teams at some point early in the year are 1-1 and then get to 2-1 or, are 4-3 or 6-5. That the Nats haven't had that. Haven't had a winning record at any
1-0 haven't had.
Yeah, haven't had a winning record in a regular season since July 2021 is remarkable. That's hard to do. You almost have to try to do something like that.
It shows you just how sluggish their starts have been, how bad their Aprils have been. As we said, the other day, this is their best April, was their best April under Davey Martinez. And that includes teams in 18 and 19 and in theory in 21 that were supposed to be good and trying to win. So good for them for finally getting off to just a decent start. Not a great start, but just a decent start. And it changes the mindset. You don't have that uphill battle all along. You feel like, okay, we're hanging around in this thing. And the longer you go and you're somewhat in the range of 500, the better it makes everybody feel. As we've talked about, you get to July and you're sniffing 500, you are in the race. And I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, but they're playing at least at a level that allows them to think in those kind of terms. And it's just refreshing for the first time in a long time to not be thinking about, oh man, they got to make up so much ground, and this feels like a hopeless cause, or it's going to take something miraculous for them to get back on track. No, they're doing it here early on, and if they ever do actually go through a true winning streak, look out. They may really be in good position at some point.
And the Nats were 2-6. So to be 16-16, that's 14-10 since the 2-6 start. So for almost a full month now, playing winning baseball. Nice to be able to say that. This installment of the Nats Chat podcast has been brought to us by Table to Mat, which you can count on for all of your nutrition and personal training needs. Table to Mat offers virtual and in-person nutrition services and personal training to the DMV area. You can email Table to Mat directly at tabletomat.com. That is the word table, the number 2, MAT.com. You could also call Table to Mat at 240-388-2206. You can hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube. Just search Nats Chat. Our YouTube handle is at Nats Chat Podcast. And please click on the thumbs up button and please click on subscribe. We very much appreciate that. We have a website that we invite you to check out, natschatpodcast.com. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast. For this game one against the Dodgers on Thursday night, incredibly, had Alex Avila as the team starting second baseman, Josh Harrison as the team starting third baseman, and Starlin Castro as the team's starting shortstop. Is this truly the ultimate sign of the Nationals' lack of depth this season, or was this more so just a confluence of a number of things, the stars aligning to where the Nats had no choice but to put their backup catcher as their starting second baseman?
Primary Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Now is the time to make a plan. Whether you plan to vote absentee by mail, in person at your county auditor's office before Election Day, or at your polling place on June 4th, it's important you take steps now to make your plan at voterready.iowa.gov. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Find more info at voterready.iowa.gov. This message is presented by the Iowa Secretary of State.